My name is Marcus Lane. I'm 35 years old. I've always been the quiet one in the family, the one who didn't flaunt his achievements, the one who sat back and let others have the spotlight. I don't wear designer suits. I don't post motivational quotes on LinkedIn, and I don't talk about my work unless someone asks. But I've built something real, something powerful. And on the night my sister tried to humiliate me in front of the whole family, she had no idea who she was mocking. It was our annual family dinner, one of those polished, over-the-top events that my sister Olivia insisted on hosting ever since she got promoted. She wore power like perfume, thick and attention-seeking. The dining room was full of fake smiles, cutted food and shallow conversation. I sat near the end of the table, like always, next to our cousins and away from the successful ones. And that's exactly where Olivia liked me. Quiet, in the background, easy to overlook. The conversation turned to work, as it always did. My cousin had just gotten a promotion. Applause. My aunt mentioned retiring early. More applause. Then Olivia raised her glass and smirked. "And how about Marcus? Still freelancing from your apartment?" Laughter rippled around the table. She didn't stop. "It's cute, really. You're like the artistic black sheep, the struggling one. But at least you're consistent." I didn't flinch. I just stared at my glass and smiled. But inside, I felt something tighten, not shame, not anger, just readiness. Because in that moment I realized it was time to shift the story. I'd waited long enough. I'd stayed quiet long enough. And the irony, she had just handed me the perfect opportunity. You see, Olivia's job, that title she wore like a crown, came from a tech startup she'd joined a year ago. She bragged about it constantly. What she never bothered to ask was who the new silent investor was, who had quietly bought controlling shares when the company hit a cash flow crisis 6 months earlier, who now, legally and financially, owned the company that signed her paychecks. Spoiler, it was me. The thing is, I never planned for it to play out this way. I never wanted to own her company. But when I saw the opportunity months ago, when her startup began bleeding money after a bad acquisition, I saw more than just a business decision. I saw leverage, quiet power, and most of all, a chance to finally be free of the games she'd played since we were kids. Olivia had always thrived on comparison, and I was always the yardstick she measured herself against, but only when she thought I was beneath her. I started investing silently through a private holding firm I built during my freelance years. You'd be amazed what people miss when you don't wear your success like a neon sign. They assume you're invisible, irrelevant. And that's the mistake Olivia made. She never asked who came in to save her company, never read past the initials on the shareholder documents, never thought to connect her salary to the man she used to call the artistic disappointment. But I didn't just buy in. I bought control. 41%, enough to hire and fire, enough to vote on direction, enough to make or break the very title she loved, waving around at family dinners. And the best part, I didn't need to do anything dramatic. I just needed to wait, let her dig the hole, let her write the script with every smug comment and passive insult. And that night at dinner, she handed me the final scene. After the laughter faded, she leaned back and said, "It's wild how different we turned out, right? I mean, some of us actually climbed the ladder." Her voice was sweet, but sharpened to cut. The table went quiet. No one knew where to look. That's when I set down my glass and finally spoke. "You're right, Liv. We did turn out different," I said calmly. "And since we're talking about careers, I should probably thank you." She blinked, confused. "For what?" she asked, still half laughing. I smiled, that slow, even smile that says you know something they don't. "For working so hard this year. Your performance has helped boost investor confidence across the board." The air changed. Her eyes narrowed. "Investor?" she asked. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my pocket, pulled out the company report, and slid it across the table. Her company, her face, her metrics, and my name at the top. Majority stakeholder, owner. She stared at it, then back at me. No words, just silence thick enough to shatter glass. For a few seconds, no one said a word. Olivia's fingers hovered above the page like it might burn her. Her lips parted, searching for something clever, something dominant to say, but nothing came out, just a soft stammer, followed by a flush of red creeping up her neck. Her voice, once the loudest in every room, was suddenly fragile. "This isn't real," she said, half to herself. You're not even in tech." I stayed calm. "No, I'm not," I replied, "but I am in ownership, and I believe in hiring competent people, which you were at first." The word "were" hit her like a slap. It didn't have to be loud. It just had to be true. She sat frozen, glancing at our parents, at the rest of the table, waiting for someone to step in and rescue her. But no one did. For the first time, the room wasn't orbiting around her. It was still, and I held the center. My father looked down. My mother reached for her wine. Cousins who once laughed along with her stared at their plates. Olivia was unraveling, not with screams but with silence. And that's the thing people like her never expect, to lose control without a fight. She kept trying to piece it together. Why would you even?" I leaned forward slightly. "Because I believed in the company," I said. "And because I believe in growing things quietly, not for approval, not for applause, just to see how far they can go when no one's watching." She knew then, knew that all the years she spent mocking me, dismissing me, laughing behind my back, I was never failing. I was building. She stood up suddenly. "You're trying to embarrass me," she hissed, her voice shaking. "You waited for this moment. You wanted this." I tilted my head. "No, Olivia, I didn't wait for this. You created it." I folded the document back into my coat. "I didn't need to humiliate you. You did that when you chose ego over kindness." She stormed away from the table, heels clacking down the hallway, leaving her perfect meal, her perfect performance, and her audience behind. I didn't chase her. I just sat there, letting the silence settle back in. It wasn't victory that I felt. It was something deeper, something steadier. I had finally stepped out of the shadow she kept pushing me into, not by shouting but by standing still and letting her noise collapse on its own. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet for Olivia. She tried to recover, of course. Posted a few curated photos from the dinner with cropped captions. Tried to spin the narrative like everything was fine. But word had already spread. And not just through the family. The moment she left that table in a storm of shame, the mask cracked. People started asking questions at the company too, about ownership, about leadership, about whether she was really who she claimed to be. I didn't interfere. I didn't call her. I didn't remove her from the company. I didn't need to. The silence was doing its job. She kept showing up to work, but the energy had shifted. No more entitled eye rolls during meetings. No more walking in late with excuses. She'd show up early now, quiet, careful, because she understood. Every misstep now landed on my desk. Every problem, my problem to fix or replace. What shook her most wasn't just that I owned the company. It was that I never rubbed it in. I didn't gloat. I didn't post about it. I didn't fire her. I simply existed in the position she'd tried to convince the world I'd never reach. That kind of restraint rattles people like her more than revenge ever could. It forces them to sit with themselves, with the lies, the performance, the illusion of superiority. I heard from mutual contacts that she was struggling to keep control of her team. One resignation, then another. Apparently she was snapping more often. Nervous, paranoid. People could sense the change. She was no longer untouchable, because the one person she deemed a failure now had the quiet power to decide her future. I didn't have to use it, just the knowledge that I could was enough. Our parents never brought up the incident. Not directly, but at the next family dinner, much smaller, much quieter, they were different. My mother asked how work was going. My father offered a toast to silent successes. It was subtle, but intentional. They had seen what Olivia refused to, that the son they once overlooked had become the anchor, and that humility, not volume, is what builds legacy. And Olivia? She barely spoke that evening, not because she wasn't invited to speak, but because she had finally learned what it felt like to sit in silence, not the kind I once endured, but the kind that grows in the shadow of dignity. Her fall wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It came with every quiet reminder that the man she mocked had never needed to clap back. He just needed to show up as the owner. Olivia started avoiding me at meetings. She'd find reasons to send updates through others, skip calls, or accidentally miss calendar invites. It was her way of clinging to pride while dodging reality, but the truth was, her power had never really come from her position. It had come from people believing in the illusion she created, and now that illusion had cracked. I didn't take anything from her. She dismantled it herself, one arrogant word at a time. Still, I didn't remove her. I promoted someone else above her quietly, someone she used to micromanage, a competent, respected leader who had been biding his time. I reshaped the company culture slowly, quietly. Every move I made was precise, not to hurt her, but to elevate what she couldn't: humility, teamwork, actual results. Her department was no longer hers to lead. It was hers to support, and she knew it. One morning she sent me a message. "Do you hate me?" Just that. No greeting, no punctuation. Just 5 words, stripped of armor. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't feel hate. I felt closure. I typed back, "No. But I learned to stop letting your voice define mine." I hit send and closed my laptop. She didn't reply, but she didn't need to. I hadn't written it for her. I'd written it for the version of me she used to dismiss. In the months that followed, I flourished. My name, once left off of invites and ignored at family tables, started showing up in rooms that mattered, not because I pushed my way in, but because I brought results. I bought a quiet home on the edge of the city. No one knew until they saw the deed. I spoke at conferences, quietly mentored new founders. My silence had become something sacred, not a wound, but a strategy. As for Olivia, she started to shift. No more loud bragging online. No more cutting comments at family dinners. She began showing up on time, staying late, asking for feedback. Maybe it was shame, maybe it was growth. I didn't analyze it too much, because by then I had finally detached my peace from her behavior. I wasn't living in reaction to her anymore. I was living in rhythm with myself. And that was the most satisfying part. Not that I'd won, but that I no longer needed to. I'd stopped playing her game and built my own. One where silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. One where failure wasn't falling behind, it was choosing a different road. And now, I was walking it with my head high, my name clean, and my hands unburdened by proving anything to anyone. A year later, I stepped away from the company. Not because I had to, but because I'd outgrown it. I'd done what I came to do. Built it, stabilized it, reclaimed the space where my name was once erased. I left it in good hands, with leaders who valued more than titles and surface-level charm. And Olivia, she stayed. quiet, consistent, and much smaller than before. Not in stature, but in ego. I didn't announce my departure with fanfare. I didn't send a company-wide farewell message. I simply handed over the keys to someone I trusted and walked out with everything that mattered. My dignity, my growth, and my peace. Some people thought I was crazy to walk away from something so lucrative, but they didn't understand. Owning the company was never the real victory. Outgrowing the need for it was. My parents invited me to dinner a few months after, just the three of us. No grand setting, no performances, just a quiet evening where my father looked me in the eye and said, "I misjudged you." It wasn't easy for him to say, but I nodded, accepted it, and didn't gloat. Because the truth is, I hadn't just earned his respect, I had earned my own. Olivia was there too, distant, polite, reserved. She thanked me softly for everything I did for the company. She didn't say the word sorry, but that's okay. Not all apologies come with sound. Some come with silence, with changed behavior, with smaller voices and bigger questions, and I saw that shift in her. Not in her words, but in her restraint. It was enough. Now, I live simply. I write. I invest in people, not companies. I speak only when it adds value, and I've learned that revenge isn't about flipping the script. It's about walking away and letting the story write itself. The people who humiliate you today will one day have to sit in the silence your absence creates. And if you've done the work, they'll feel it, not because you shouted, but because you no longer need to.
My name is Marcus Lane.
My sister once called me a failure in front of our entire family. That night, I revealed I owned the company she built her pride on. But my real success, it wasn't proving her wrong. It was becoming someone who didn't need to. Someone who knew the loudest revenge is silence, earned through power, patience, and peace.